Hi, my name is Scott Challey. I have come up with a new world order for you to listen to and understand that we can live in peace and harmony for the future. This is out of a book that I wrote called The Glorious Beast. This talks about the new world order and what it will be for the people. It's called American Constitution of Economics. Here I'll go. Scott was on a set directing a scene when he received a phone call. It was at the bowling alley. It was Jerry Matthews. Scott held up the filming while he spoke on the phone. Hello, this is Scott. Hi, Scott. This is Jerry Matthews of the Washington Political Society. I major in economics for the economy. I was informed by Tony Pachetti about you and your new world order that you have come up with. I have read your book and I think it is very good. The new world order you speak of in the book is mind-boggling to me. I think it's, at first when I looked at it, I was saying it wouldn't work given everyone money due to the fact that the dollar would lose its value and cause inflation. But after studying and watching a few of your videos on the website, I have come to the conclusion that it's a very good, amazing idea you have come up with. Thanks, Jerry. I've been expecting your call. I've been thinking about it for a long time to make it a better economy policy for the world. Scott, do you have time to talk now? You mind if I ask you a few questions about your policy and your new world order plan? That is to make up and give out an unlimited amount of money for the United States government and the rest of the world to be as one identity? Not really. I'm filming for a movie right at the moment, but I suppose I could stop everything for a few minutes to talk. Scott told everyone on the set to take a 30-minute break. The first thing I would like to clear up is how would you control the fluctuation of the dollar in the economy? There would be a tariff placed on all food products, rental, homes, apartments, utilities, insurances, and new cars where they will or can't increase more than 10% a year. For instance, if there's a loaf of bread that sells for $2 during the year from calendar date of January 1st to December 31st, no more than 20 cents can be added to the loaf to equal $2.20 for the calendar year. Only after the following year, the cost of living allowance fluctuation will be figured in for each district or county. The housing, new autos, utilities, insurance, and food, then again, may fluctuate only 10% for the following fiscal year. For some items, it may be decreased or increased on prices depending on the demand or shortages. Businesses and companies will be fined greatly if they are not within compliance, which is dictated and directed by the county within the government. After time, the economy will be steady, common rate. How much will each person get per month or year, and how is it broken down? I found it to sound complicated and to understand all the details when I watched your video. See, I used an example of Monticello, Iowa, being a small community. I based the cost of living to be approximately $20,000 a year for a single person to live off of. If there is a couple, each person will get $20,000 to equal $40,000 a year. For a single person, that would be about $1,666 a month. You would take the cost of the average living expense per district or county that is set up for the world. Policy. I'll use Monticello to explain, for example, of the breakdown. For instance, if you were to rent or make payments on a cheap one-bedroom house, it would cost $500 on average. With insurance, $75, natural gas, $50, electric, $75, sewer, $66, and used new car payment, $250, miscellaneous, $50, and food, $600. This will be without having a job. If you choose to work, your benefits will stay the same for the entitlement. Each person is entitled to claim one kid to receive an extra $500 a month until they are 18 years of age to spend as they wish. So a couple with 2 kids would receive $51,984 a year. No money is given beyond the child or person. But let's say one of the couples in the relationship has 2 kids, chooses not to take the custody, and leaves the child with the mother or father to care for. $500 for the one kid would be received, and if the other spouse chooses not to take care of the child, the one with the 2 children would receive $1,000 for the kids. If a woman under 18 years of age has a baby, from the time the baby is born, that individual will be entitled to receive the cost of living allowance given through the government. There will be no more alimony for children for the opposite parents to collect for 2 children. If the opposite parent decides to work, that parent is making extra money. The government will allow the courts to deem the alimony up to 25% of the parent's working wages if he or she chooses to care for the child or children. Usually it'll work in cases with parents that have more than 3 kids together to receive 25% of the wages working. That sounds pretty good. Sounds like you got it figured out. But what about state government aid for people like food stamps, unemployment, money for assisted housing, WIC, and other government programs? There will be no other government programs assisting the people besides what would be of the cost of living allowance that is given for the New World policy. Food stamps would be done away with. Unemployment will be done away with also. But Social Security, if you paid in through a job, you will still have that backup as a backup for retirement or disability on top of the cost of living allowance. It'll be determined on the amount you pay in for the amount you receive for retirement and disability for the day that the New World policy takes effect. If you never work, you'll never get Social Security. And if you choose to work part-time or very little will come back to you from Social Security. Other pensions from the government that people have worked over the years will only be authorized to the individuals prior to the world policy date. They will be discontinued in the future. If they have 10 or more years working in the government's policy, it will be prorated for the time they served for the 10 years or more, but it will not continue any farther in the future for said policy. This will only be paid out as directed by the old standing policy of the country or government. If they are disabled and receive the policy, they will receive that until they are in the grave. That's good. That's all good to know. You have made it very clear to me. Thanks, Scott, for your time. No problem, Jerry. You can call me anytime if you have more questions. Scene 75 took place in Scott's den. Scott had just spent 2 weeks after work and weekends writing up a New World policy. Scott called for Sandra to come downstairs. He wanted to read the New World policy to her to see what she thought. Director's cut guy, scene 75, take 3. The first pages of Scott's New World policy. Scott's yelling. Sandra, can you come downstairs for a few minutes? Yeah, I can come downstairs. She had returned the response with a loud voice from upstairs. She came down and sat on the futon. Well, honey, I think I finished with the first draft of the new world policy. It took me 2 weeks to write, but I think you'll like it. I would like for you to listen and tell me what you think. Is that okay? Yeah, I'm looking forward to hearing it. Okay, here it goes. I named it ACE Services with 3 branches of ACE. 3 branches. Ace of Hearts, Ace of Spades, and Ace of Diamonds. It stands for American Constitution of Economics. Interesting. What do the aces stand for? The Ace of Hearts stands for love and represents the people for health care and anything related. The A stands for America, and the definition for America is relating to the United States or the continents of America. The Ace of Spades stands for power and represents leadership, justice for all people alike. The C standing for Constitution, and the definition of Constitution is a body of fundamental principles or established procedures according to which a state or organization is governed. The Ace of Diamonds stands for wealth and represents the money to be used for the government. Funding of buildings, projects such as roads, schools, wages of people who work for the government and for all people. As for money that is needed for the people or projects, the E standing for economics, and the definition of economics is relating to the economics or the economy, justified terms and profitability. Nice, very interesting. Sounds like you got a lot of thought into this. Yeah, but it only gets better. I'll read to you and just stop me when you need a break or when you have a question. Okay, I'm ready. ACE Services, a constitution governing the people's protection. It will establish a well-liked society for which we, the people, live. By bringing balance to a system in how we operate, I, Scott Leroy Challey, see a vision of 3 different branches that will be known as ACE Services. As we and I read along, I will explain how ACE Services will benefit this one world nation. I will go over and explain 3 of the 4 powers that will represent our society. How in relationship we the people will be helped and why we'll need to uphold these powers. You will see new laws come into effect, as well as some old laws be removed from the books. You will see a medical system for the people, not for the unjust good of profits. You will see a well-balanced lending system, which will be fair for all. You will see how we, the people, will not be afraid to invest in our economy, which we will have secured markets balanced and backed by the government. All leadership will be looked at, and some ethics of leadership will be changed to meet for the commonwealth of the people. There will be a double-check system in all parts of the government. Civilian offices need to assure no wrongdoing is being done to mankind. You may be asking how this can happen. Well, for the most part, information will be gathered and obtained from the people by sealed collection boxes in every post office. As a sealed collection box is removed, another sealed collection box will take its place. Only in the facility to where the collection boxes go would have the access codes and the necessity of keys needed to open all the information obtained in the collection boxes. By keeping the security of the information obtained at their utmost responsibility. Failure to do differently could lead to immediate dismissal and prosecution in the fullest of the law. These boxes will be accessible for all people, no matter how young or old, for the good or for the bad. The people will have the right to voice their opinions to be heard, or at least suggest something that they would like to see changed. This will include if it's a sensitive situation like a minor being sexually assaulted, rape cases, or spouse abuse cases where they may be afraid to talk to the police. Small businesses, big businesses, companies, factories, and all alike should not worry on how they operate. Now the common day worker will have more rights and have the backing of the law on their side. All concerns will be addressed and carried out, whether for the good or for the bad of the applying parties. Laws will be proposed due to the effects of multiple complaints of the same nature, or be considered for new operating procedures that best fits the common public. Tallies will be kept on how we can achieve a greater society. The people of Ace Services, Ace of Spades Department, would then work the people's suggestions into bills and laws that would best suit the people with a certain percentage of the population to come forward. If negligence or wrongdoing should come to any official in any of the Ace Services office, that individual will be immediately put on suspension until the matter is solved. He or she will be upheld to the fullest of the law. If the one who puts the complaint forward is falsifying or found at fault without reasonable doubt, he or she will face or could face criminal charges. The employer at that time will have full right to fire that individual. There will be what you call a scorecard or a sheet with a rating scale from 1 to 10 made up for each person for each complaint submitted or action. Ace Services, Ace of Spades office will have to write a brief statement explaining the proper action and outcome for each situation and what appropriate action is to be taken. All actions will be kept on file in every record that is involved and at the appropriate Ace Services office for a minimum of 3 years. How are you following so far, Sandra? That last part with the scorecard, you're saying there will be a card that the people will be able to fill out at every post office to concern a problem of any sort that will be followed up by the Ace of Spades Department? That's correct. And the Ace of Spades Department will also be doing a rating of how important it is and a written portion of how it will be handled. Cool. Okay, continue. So let me be keen about this. I say, if we're not looking out for one another, we could close down our own employment due to the neglect of our own doing. In no way, shape, or form should blackmail be used against a company or an individual working for a company for profit to better oneself. I suggest that businesses may want to look into profit sharing for their workers to keep a more stable workflow being produced. All Ace Services offices will have the necessary information, updated policies and procedures for businesses to conform by federal, state, or local laws. All businesses must do is make a call or look online to the appropriate office for the information they seek. At any time, there will be a number for anyone to call for help or information. But actions must be added to the proper slips for official actions to be carried out. Here is a more defined list of Ace Services list of powers. The Ace of Hearts will stand for love and represent Americans. It's the most important of all the aces. Ace of Hearts would be the branch that covers the people's protection to ensure all have assistance in medical needs, to include government health, free prescription, family assistance programs, emergency relief efforts, and any other agencies that are similar in nature. No one should be deprived of these services or be left behind. Ace of Spades shall stand for power. This will include lawyers, business owners, any executive officers, to the everyday worker from the highest ranking general to the lowest enlisted private, and all leaders alike. This branch will govern fair treatment for all to ensure they have a voice to be heard as equals. No undue justice should come to any one person. ACE services will allow all people to seek assistance throughout the land of any situation that may arise. All leaders, no matter how big or small, will have to abide by the rules set forth. Ace of Diamonds will stand for wealth. These offices will handle the nation's budget along with the payments allotted to the people of the world and dispositioning of money to the agencies of need. The adding of different files like credit, bank accounts, as well as federal aid is handled at this office. Anything from financial needs of people in the Emergency Relief Act, along with investment agencies that would be for the people. Ace of Clubs represents entertainment. My best way to explain this, if you'd look how kings would use gestures for entertainment, or how the Romans would use their colosseums, it indicates false bearings and misuse of powers. So the Ace of Clubs would be like bars, sports events, bowling alleys, and clubs. Yes, that's correct. Do you understand everything so far? Yes, I think so. It sounds pretty good. As you can see, we the people can prosper and feel freedom at its fullest. As we share in the duties of our everyday life, we will know that we are free and equal to one another. Fairness will be carried out across the land with the backing of the justice system on our side. We will do away with the heart-stricken problems that affect each of us. When leadership or leaders drift from their respective duties, it becomes a burden, and burdens we don't need. Some leaders may prejudge people without knowing all the facts by simply having a biased approach towards work ethics, which they may not worry about the health and farewell of the workers. We need to seek out those leaders and try to train them to be good leaders, but if untrainable, we must replace. We, the leaders, need to listen to the people's wants, needs, desires, along with keeping their safety and their health top priority. Leaders need to make sound decisions. They need to be fair and just for all parties alike, without bringing shame to one's workplace or to one's values. For leaders to place immoral acts or beliefs in front of the people's common values, such as unjust or abusive power for profits, prejudice in front of their own values, or sympathize hardship on others for their own good, all this shall not be tolerated as a leader. Everyone will have to uphold these duties for which they operate for the common farewell of the people. No one shall use unfair judgment towards one another. Common interest shows that we are all the same for we can make it better for all people. If the people get in an unlikable situation where there is no help of needs for the people to fall between the guidelines of what we can say are considered as fair or just plain hardship from such businesses or companies. Zero tolerance for harassment in the workplace should always be upheld. It is the leader's responsibility to uphold and provide a healthy work environment. Leaders must not mix up a social activity as the source of a problem, but keep what is fair for one the same for all. Also keep a keen eye and ear of possible problems that may arise. If one should see something strange occurring, they should contact the one or the parties that are involved before it progresses. We might want to consider a don't ask or don't tell policy. We should consider it for general living standards of what the people want. There also should be no harassment for the general population. Keep in mind, in other words, what a neighbor or someone we encounter should not pose judgment on one another for what he or she does on their personal time, but also saying, the neighbor ye shall respect as long as there is no harm to come to thy neighbor, to include what may occur because of carelessness or misbehavior. There'll be a justice system inside of a justice system to see that all justice to be carried out fairly. New bills and rights for the people will be either adopted or proposed along with some of the funds being granted or suggested to a higher court for approval within the government. The Ace of Spades office, when they act on a dispute, they should evaluate carefully and have a bipartisan opinion to adopt on the situation of each matter, which can allow the individual to act on several different videos or actions given through Ace services, authorizing different agencies to solve the situation so it doesn't occur again. This policy would use a 3-strike method for the first line supervisor position. The points would add up for everybody in the immediate chain of command for said company, government, or business that is applied to. If there were to be one person under the next level of leadership, the second level of leadership would have a total of 6 points. The third line of leadership would have 9 points, and the fourth line of leadership would have 12 points. But if the first line of leadership were a total of 4 people, that would mean a second line leadership would have a total of 15 points. 3 points per leader would be granted in the direct chain to equal the total for the level of points for leadership position. The highest level leadership, the highest level supervisor would have to set up a point schematic scheme as soon as possible within 90 days of starting such business or expansion of such business. If a company has as little as 2 people, you may have 6 points, but no more than 666 points for a company that has 1,000 plus people. A line of leadership can branch off as much as for as many leaders as you have. But for large businesses, it will cap at 1,000 employees for the justifications of the business or company. And even government establishments won't be off balance within the leadership of said chain. So if a company establishment has more than 1,000 workers, they will have to divide up their establishments. I will give you an example of how the point system will work. Let's say the first line supervisor gets turned in to Ace Services due to a racial statement that he or she had made to an employee, which the Ace Services offices decided for the employee. The first line supervisor will now go down to 2 points instead of having 3-point value. Also, the same supervisor will have to join some classes on racial harassment acts. If he or she chooses not to attend the class in the time that was allowed, they would lose another point along with the chain of command, unless that leader was removed from his or her duty. The whole chain of command, all the way up to the president of the company, would lose a point, and it would stay on their record for 3 full years. For each point that is taken away at said time, which only when the 3 years are up from the time of the said point was deemed to have happened, they will receive the point back to the 3 points where they had started for the first line leader. No other first line leader would lose a point, only the ones that are in the direct line of the one that got turned in. From the lowest to the highest, it will always be accounted for, any situation or incident that may come about. In rare cases, there may be more than 1 point taken, or a business or company may be closed down for a short time until the problem is solved. From the first line leader to the top of the command that has a complaint against him or her, there could be as many as 3 points or half the total points taken from what they would have been entitled to. So they should be careful of what they do as a business, and they should make good judgment calls. Each business will be granted 3 points per tiered level in the chain. So if there are 4 different levels, you would receive an extra 12 points separately from the immediate chain line, which the strikes would be directed toward or against the business. If the business has many complaints against it, as a number of granted slots in the slots being maxed out, granting the number of disciplinary complaints that are to be allowed. The disciplinary complaints that are against the establishment or business then will be taken out of the CEO or the president, the owner of the one who is the number one in charge. The points may hold will be depleted as the complaints come in. If the number of complaints outnumber the given number of strikes that are allowed, that is to say, if you were to go through all your granted points, you will not be authorized to operate in the public anywhere in the world. Your license will be revoked, and you to where the employee will no longer be able to work until 51% of the complaints have fallen off of their time strike penalty point actions of the main leaders given points. This means for everyone's performance record held in the A Services system, the party that is not at fault could sue for money and push for criminal actions. A Services will do their best to make all complaints fair and possible when carried out. The point system on the business will be looked at and recorded on how they perform. Workers may check on the record of their points of said business and company before seeking employment with them. Any person may go to the A Services site. It will show each business performance record, which will be open to anyone in the world to view. Or when the business has insurance or is looking for insurance, it may cost them extra. So if there are 6 first line leaders, the second line leader would have a total of 21 points. Is that correct? And let's say there is only a third line leader or a CEO of the company. He would have 24 points. Also, since there were 3 lines of leadership or tiers for that establishment, then they will have a total of 9 reserved slots to receive complaints on that said business before it affects the CEO's given points. If there are too many complaints against the establishment or business, they will be closed down for a short time. That's correct. I believe you've got it. Director Dean. Cut. Good job, you two.